Joining us now is James Hoggan. He's co-founder of dsmog.com. The Dsmog blog this week reported extensively on new research by Greenpeace that traced Koch Industries' dollars through the climate change denial infrastructure. Mr. Hoggan's also the author of Climate Cover-Up, The Crusade to Deny Global Warming, and he's president of the public relations firm James Hoggan & Associates, which has the awkward job of representing both oil companies and clean energy companies. Mr. Hoggan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
How much influence does Koch Industries really have in the debate over climate change legislation in general and drilling it specifically?
Well, back to 1997, close to $50 million came from Koch Foundation, the Koch Foundation, to 40 different organizations that are part of a network that we call an echo chamber of climate change denial.
So over 13 years, they spent $50 million.
$50 million.
Trying to convince people that climate change isn't real.
That's right, through these different organizations. And the fact that there's 40 of them creates this unique situation where people hear this message about, doubt about climate science from so many different organizations that it becomes believable. And people in my business, in the public relations business, have known this for a long time, back to the days of Philip Morris, which is actually where some of these organizations and the techniques that they use began in the early 90s. Philip Morris started a group called the Advancement of Sound Science Coalition. And it was very, very carefully thought out public relations tactics that were used to shift the issues around tobacco off of health issues and on to sound science issues. And Philip Morris knew they couldn't do it by themselves, and so they invited people like, or organizations like Exxon and other fossil fuel companies to join them. And it basically became the beginning of a campaign that a lot of these 40 different organizations that I was talking about earlier drew on to, then it was tobacco, today it's greenhouse gases.
But you're saying it's the same tactic in two ways. One, that you use a lot of different organizations, so you can't just dismiss the one industry-funded group that's trying to shoot down what everybody else thinks is true. But it's also taking on not the policy issues about what the implications are of the science, but attacking the science, saying there's no real problem here, trying to make that a muddy issue.
That's right. It basically undermines, it poisons public conversations, and it undermines public confidence in science, and it makes it difficult for even well-intended political leaders to actually do the right thing on these issues. And the trick in public relations is always repetition. Mm-hmm. You look for those kind of projects where you can actually tell people something 10 times, so they actually remember what you're talking about, and there's more chance that they're actually going to believe you. When you pour $50 million into 40 different organizations like this, and Koch Industries isn't the only funder, Exxon and a number of other groups and companies are funding these 40 climate change denier outfits. That is an incredibly powerful influence over public opinion.
And that makes it an incredibly powerful influence over politics. Briefly, are you optimistic that there will be energy legislation this year?
I am. But you know what? I think it's all going to come down to this, that people need to start to demand that political leaders and journalists start to ask these these so-called climate change skeptics some basic questions about who's funding them and what their qualifications are, whether or not they're actually even climate scientists or they're doing climate science. We've been looking at this for 4 years. It is really difficult to find a legitimate climate scientist who doesn't think that climate change is a problem.